When you're fighting with your spouse or partner, don't go around telling your family how terrible they are. Because, it's easy to do when you're angry at them. You start talking about all their bad things. Well, then you go back to them and you make up and you're all in love again. Your family hasn't forgotten all the crap you shared with them. They're thinking, this guy's a jerk. Why'd she go back with them? And now when you get together for holidays and stuff, your family's all like, and you're mad because why are you guys so mean to him? I love him. He's so wonderful. And you're like, did you forget what you told us he did? Oh, I'm over that. It's like, well, yeah, you are, but we didn't go back with him. We're not sleeping with him. We don't feel the same way about him anymore.
I wake up in the morning with a smile on my face, feeling thankful for the love and the happiness we chase. Sun is shining brightly, sky so blue and clear.
Today, my husband and I are celebrating 43 years of wedded bliss. Well, maybe not bliss, but you know what I mean. 43 years. And, well, we're not really going to celebrate because it's Wednesday and that's one of my busiest nights, so we're going to go out this weekend. But regardless, the point is that today marks the day that we have been officially married for 43 years. And yes, it's been as long as it sounds, 43 years. We actually lived together for 2 years before we got married. So we've been together for 45 years. That's a long time. I'm surprised neither one of us has killed each other, to be honest with you, because there's been some times. But overall, the good has outweighed the bad. And I'm glad that we stuck it out, because there was a few times where we were willing to just chuck it, give in, walk away, because it was hard. Marriage is hard. And I didn't think it was supposed to be hard. I was of that mindset, if it was meant to be, it'd be easy. Everything would be great and wonderful all the time. Well, that's not how it was. There was good times. And like I said, the good outweighed the bad. But there were bad times. And I grew up thinking that if things got bad, just leave. You don't need to put up with that crap. I didn't realize that you can actually work through bad times and learn from them and make things better. That was new to me. I never saw that. So, yeah, we had some difficult times, especially in the beginning. Things get better as you get older. We grew up together. We were babies, 18 and 19. And one of the first things that I had to learn was communication, which is something I suck at even today. I'm not good at communicating my feelings. I just expect other people to know what I need and know what I want, read my mind. And you know what? That doesn't work out very well. So I've been trying to learn how to tell my partner what I need or what I want, and to listen to what he needs and what he wants. And I'm probably not the best at it yet. I'm still learning, but I'm much better than I was, 40 something years ago. I have learned. And that has helped the most, is being able to listen to your partner and trying to understand what they want. Because, marriage isn't the same for everybody. We don't all want the same thing out of a marriage. What my husband and I wanted is completely different from what I see a lot of other people, are doing. And it's like, I wouldn't want that kind of marriage. You see your friends or family and they have marriages that just look bad. Doesn't look like anything I'd want. Like, couples that are joined at the hip. That never appealed to me. Or marriages where the husband's in charge and the wife submits. And I know that's, a religious thing or whatever. And that's okay if it works for them. But that would have never worked for me. I don't want anybody bossing me around. I don't want anybody to be in charge of me. That's not why I got married. I got married because I wanted a partner, a friend, somebody to share my life with, somebody to raise a family with. And I had to let my partner know that's what I expected from them, and vice versa. They needed to let me know, what did they expect out of me? Did they want me to be a second mom? Because that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to have to raise a child, another child. I was raising my own kids, I wanted a helpmate. And so we had to learn to express that to each other. And it's difficult because it's awkward, but it does help. It really does help. I had to take some notes because you know me, I'll forget a lot of this stuff. But anyway, yeah, the most important thing obviously is communicating. Let your partner know what you want or need. Don't expect them to read your mind. You can't read theirs. So, just give them that opportunity. If they screwed up because they didn't know what you wanted and you didn't express that, that's on you. Don't be mad at them for that. Number 2, fight fair, because you're gonna fight. If you don't fight, there's something wrong. I've heard couples say, we never fight. That's just weird. Maybe they just don't realize they fight. I'm not talking about knockdown dragouts, going to blows, but you're going to have differences of opinions. At least if you have your own mind, you're going to. And you're not supposed to bring up past issues. When you're fighting about something, it should be the issue at hand, whatever it is. Don't use this time to pile on all the other things that they did wrong or pissed you off. You know what I mean? Let's just focus on what's happening right now. Let's address that. But I used to do that. It's like I would hold it in and then just let it pile up, and then I would just, blow up, and then I'd bring up everything and just throw it all at him all at one time. And it was like, how is he supposed to fix it? There was so much, It's easier if you just give the person one thing at a time to focus on. And that's where we're at. We don't bring up past issues. If they're in the past, leave them in the past. Unless there's things that still haven't been worked out, then bring them up, but not when you're already arguing about something else. You know what I mean? So that's important. Communication, fight fair, respect each other's differences. You're not clones. You don't have to think and feel exactly the same, and we don't. Actually, it makes it more interesting. I didn't want to marry myself. I want, a little more, I don't know. I learned from him, listening to his opinions, because I respect him, because he's smart. And that's another thing. Marry somebody that's smart, or at least that you think is smarter than you. I can't imagine being married to somebody that's dumb. That would be awful. I hope he doesn't feel that way. But yeah, respect each other's differences. And it's okay. We don't agree on everything, and that's okay. We have core beliefs that are the same, our values and stuff. They're pretty similar, but we have different opinions on other things, not just religion and politics, but music and movies and where to vacation, stuff like that. We both have our own opinions, and that's okay. It makes things interesting. Be each other's safe space. That's one thing I can count on. I know he always has my back, whether I'm right or wrong, and he can tell me later if he felt that I might have been wrong about the situation. But I know at the time when something happens, he's there for me. He's not like, what the heck did you do? And lets me just figure it out. It's like, if something bad happens, you need to know you have a person. You have somebody you can count on. And that's what we are for each other. He knows I'll always have his back no matter what, and vice versa. He's always had my back. And I appreciate that, because it's nice to have somebody, in this crazy world. Never stop growing together. That really is important, because you're going to change, and so is your partner, and you have to allow that. They're not going to be the same person you married. I was looking at a picture, we don't even look the same. We have both changed so much, but I like the person that he's become. And he didn't try and keep me in a box, because I see people do that. They're like, they want their mate to look exactly like they looked when they first got married. They don't even want them to cut their hair, don't gain any weight, don't change your hairstyle, just be the same person. Doesn't make sense. People grow, they change, and if you love them, those type of things aren't going to change how you feel about them. If they do, then your love was superficial anyway. So yeah, grow together. Talk about your goals, talk about your dreams, your fears, share things, get to know each other. If you didn't get to know each other before you got married, because a lot of people got married pretty quick, back in my day, people would get married after 6 months. You can't really know a person after 6 months. So, now that you're together all the time, it's be a good time to get to know each other. Talk, find out what the other person's dreams and goals are, because you might be surprised, hopefully pleasantly so. This one's important. Do not compare your marriage to anyone else's. Everybody's marriage is different. People are different. It's a very individual thing. I wouldn't want, like I said, some of the marriages that I see, they would not work for me, and vice versa. I'm sure a lot of people look at our marriage and wonder, how the hell does that even work? Because we give each other space, a lot of space. We both need it. We're kind of introverts, and we need a lot of space, but we know we're both there for each other. But at the same time, we have different interests. We do different things, and it makes him more interesting to me. I like that. When COVID struck and we were together 24/7, it was not my favorite time. It wasn't for him either, And people say, well, what are you going to do when you're retired? Well, when we retire, we're going to go and do the things that we've always wanted to do. Some of them we'll do together, and some of them we'll do apart, and that's okay. Feelings fluctuate. There's going to be days where one of you is more in love with the other. It's not always going to be 50-50, your contribution to the relationship. Sometimes it'll be 70-30. Sometimes it'll be 90-10. But in the end, it should even out. If it doesn't, if you're always carrying more of the weight of the relationship, then yeah, there's a problem. You need to talk about it. But give your partner an opportunity, because they may not even realize it. They may think they're carrying more than they do. They may not realize that you had more needs or expectations. So again, that's where communication comes in. Let them know. They don't know. And if you want a good relationship, you want that, you got to be willing to put the work into it. You can't just expect this person to be everything to you and do everything, and you haven't even expressed what it is you wanted. You're just mad that they're not doing it all, so you're just gonna, I'm done and I'm gonna go find somebody else. Well, good luck, because you're gonna run into that with the next person. You have to be willing to talk about what you want and what you need out of your relationship. And you have to be able to put in some time and effort. You may be doing a lot of some things that you think, I'm doing all this and that, and your partner doesn't even recognize it because it's not what they need or want. Like I know a lot of women when I was younger, they were always doing, lots of housework and making, nice dinners and stuff, but they were actually neglecting their husband in other ways. And they just didn't understand it. They thought they were just the perfect wife. They did all these wonderful things, but they weren't really there the way the partner needed them to do. And he left. And I've seen it with, I've seen that, the opposite, with husbands that, go to work and work, 24/7. They're constantly working, making lots of money, and, they're not there. And even though they've given their spouse, their partner, all these material things, they weren't there for them the way their spouse needed them. They wanted somebody to go and do things with them. They wanted somebody to help them raise the children. They didn't just want their money, And I think a lot of people think that's what marriage is. The husband goes to work and makes all the money, and then the wife stays home and she does all the household things. And maybe that works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. And you have to tell your partner what it is, you want. Communicate that. Again, communicate. It's the most important thing. I wanted, like I said, I wanted a friend. I wanted a teammate. I wanted a partner. I did want a boss. I don't like to be bossed around. When we were doing our marriage vows, it was very important to me that we, excluded the part where it said I was going to obey. It's like, I'm not going to obey him. He's no smarter than I am. We're in this together. We were both babies. Why should I follow him. That how would he have felt if it said that he had to obey me? That it's just dumb. They tried to explain their way out of it. The church did. Well, this is, well, you can only have one person, leading, and it was stupid. It's like, no, we are both adults. We are both in charge. We are working together as a team. None of us is better than the other. Sometimes he makes better choices. Sometimes I feel like I make wiser choices. We work together. If you want to obey your partner, that's on you. Like I said, marriage is different to everybody. One of the things that I personally find important is a sense of humor. I guess not everybody does, but my husband is very sarcastic. I'm very sarcastic. I have to work on that because a lot of people don't get that. They think I'm being serious. So I get in trouble for that a lot. I have to work on that. I grew up with a very sarcastic family. My kids are sarcastic. There's a lot of sarcasm in our family, but a lot of humor. We laugh a lot, and I think that's important to a good marriage. You got to be able to laugh because laughter is the best medicine. It will help you through a lot of troubles. Let me tell you, if you can sit back and not only laugh at this situation, but be able to laugh at yourself once in a while. I crack myself up. I do a lot of things that are probably not the smartest, but I don't take myself so seriously anymore. I think that was the biggest problem when we were young. We took ourselves so serious, and it's like, chill out. Life isn't that serious, So yeah, the key things here that I think from what has worked for me for 43 years has been communication, expressing what you need to your partner, listening to your partner, fighting fair, a good sense of humor, and actually caring about the other person as a human being, not just as your spouse. I care about my husband as a person. I feel bad when I feel he gets slighted at work, or if somebody does something to him. It hurts my feelings for him because it's like, he's my friend. I love him. I don't like it when I think other people have treated him poorly, and he's my friend. Treat your partner, your spouse, your mate as a friend. I feel like we're nicer to our friends sometimes than we are to our partners. We expect so much more out of them. One more thing that I found to be very important is when you're fighting with your spouse or partner, don't go around telling your family how terrible they are. Because, it's easy to do when you're angry at them. You start talking about all their bad things. Well, then you go back to them and you make up and you're all in love again. Your family hasn't forgotten all the crap you shared with them. They're thinking, this guy's a jerk. Why'd she go back with them? And now when you get together for holidays and stuff, your family's all like, and you're mad because why are you guys so mean to him? I love him. He's so wonderful. And you're like, did you forget what you told us he did? Oh, I'm over that. It's like, well, yeah, you are. But we didn't go back with him. We're not sleeping with him. We don't feel the same way about him anymore. So yeah, be careful what you share. If you want your family, to continue liking him and welcoming him to the gatherings and the holidays and stuff, don't let them know all his dirty secrets. That's just for you and him. Be careful what you share. And like I said, I've seen that happen in our own family. I've had different relatives share these things, and then when we get together for holidays, everybody's looking at everybody else's spouse like, why did, I wouldn't put up with that, and it's just not a good thing. So, okay, well, I've talked long enough like I do, but anyway, unfortunately, I do have to work. It's Wednesday. Wednesdays are my busy nights, but we're going out this weekend. We're going to celebrate because it is important to us. We make it a priority. Last year, I screwed up. I forgot. Life was changing. I had a lot going on. I was working 3 jobs. Fortunately, my husband didn't forget, and he forgave me. He's wonderful. And so now this year I got to make it up to him. Oh, got to let you go.